everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com back again with some more lovely wrestling news. Tom has already done a news video on this channel already, so check that out if you want to catch up with the other half of the stories from today. But we have the other half to talk about in this video right now. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at those headlines. First of all, a controversial WWE superstar appears to be training for an in-ring return. Next up, a Raw superstar is disappointed with their recent comeback match this week. And finally, a WWE TV show is possibly going to be restarting. So yes, first of all, a controversial WWE superstar appears, from his social media activity, to be preparing for a return very soon. And it's none other than Lars Sullivan. Remember him? Lars has not appeared since suffering a knee injury on the June 10th, 2019 edition of Raw, but also was accused of, basically people had found a lot of old posts he made on a bodybuilding forum, I believe, where he'd said a lot of very controversial things. And obviously that didn't reflect too well on him, and people are speculating that maybe that's part of the reason also why Lars has been so sporadically appearing over the past couple of years. He was treated like a pretty big deal in NXT, but then that all sort of happened during or around the time of his call-up to the main roster, and that seems to be part of the reason, at least in my opinion, why it never really got off the ground. And then you couple that with, injury issues, and I think it's pretty easy to see why, from all the different things, why Lars really hasn't made that much of an impact since graduating from NXT. But various news sources out there have noticed recently that Lars has returned to Instagram and has been posting quite a few workout videos since the start of this month. On the caption of one of the videos, Lars wrote that he has undergone 6 knee surgeries. Now, I'm not certain whether that means recently, surely not. That seems to be too many jammed into such a short space of time. Or whether he means throughout his life, maybe that's slightly more likely. I don't really know though. He could mean the former, I guess. If you know more about knee surgery than I do, leave a comment down below, please. He also has indicated that he's been lifting 500 to 600 pounds at times. I don't know whether that's a kayfabe weight or whether he really is absolutely beasting it. He is obviously a very big guy, so maybe it's not that outlandish, especially if he's trying to return to ring shape. It also seems like he's returned to his hometown of Westminster, Colorado, basically because a few of the Instagram posts were tagged from that location. Now, it's unclear whether he returned there because of the lockdown or whether he returned there as part of his road to recovery. Maybe he's been there since before lockdown, perhaps he moved out of Florida maybe. I'm not quite certain, but he does seem to be away from Florida at the moment, but certainly training hard. Now, just a few notes, a little recap of Sullivan's career so far. He originally signed with WWE earlier than I actually thought, in 2013, before making his NXT debut a few years later in 2017. He then arrived on Raw in April 2019, and he was kind of just attacking various different superstars in a sort of unhinged monster kind of way, including Rey Mysterio, No Way Jose, the Hardys, and of course, Kurt Angle. But his call-up was also criticized for the way it was booked now and again. I specifically remember a feud he had with the Lucha House Party, including a 3-on-1 handicap match in Saudi Arabia, which ended via DQ. It's not the way that you'd expect a new heel monster to traditionally be booked. But anyway, we'll continue to monitor Lars Sullivan's activity online to see whether he really is returning to the ring, whether he gives any more clues, and of course, the response to that if it is true. Next up, Mickie James was speaking to Denise Salcedo in an interview where she talked about being disappointed. She briefly talked about being disappointed with her comeback match on this week's Raw. Because after quite a long layoff with injury and then the start of the pandemic, so when you add it all together, Mickie had been out for quite some time for different reasons, she finally made her in-ring return on Raw this week and lost by count out. And Mickie was asked how it felt to get back in the ring after being out for over a year with an injury, and she said, "It feels good to be back. I feel better than ever. From a personal standpoint, I feel great. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited about new opportunities, new matches." She didn't give a clue though as to who she'd like to face. As far as my return, I'm a little bit disappointed, but you can't win them all, I guess. You can't knock it out of the park every time. Mickie there seems to be erring on the side of kayfabe, as if to say, it was my fault, I wasn't switched on, I couldn't win the match. But it did raise a lot of questions, her return, because it was quite hyped, a little bit hyped. It wasn't like it wasn't like The Rock was coming back or anything, but it was like, oh, Mickie James is coming back. She announced it in a backstage segment. She was gonna have a match, and then lost by count out. And quite a lot of people, myself included, were very confused by this decision. She is in this sort of feud, or maybe even a mini feud with Lana and Natalya, the heel duo, and I suppose this was a way to help get them over rather than Mickie James. And sometimes in wrestling, that's the sensible way to go. You use a returning star to put over a current member of the roster who's being built up. And I understand that, but it just seemed a bit out of the blue, and for someone like Mickie James, very skilled in the ring, obviously very popular as well for her years of dedication to the business, it was a really odd decision. And it seems like Mickie herself might agree with this. She retweeted some of the fans complaining about it afterwards, and later on wrote, "Thank you, the WWE fans, for always being so loud and proud. I'm grateful always. Only up from here." Could only up from here be a clue? Is she in line for another title shot somewhere down the line, or is she just being generally optimistic? I don't know. But I'd argue possibly the latter, just given how stacked the women's division is. But then again, you can never quite be certain, especially with a limited available roster. Next up, let's briefly talk about the Raw ratings, which you'd expect to be up this week, given that it was the go-home show for SummerSlam, and it featured the likes of HBK in the main segment at the end with Randy Orton. And it didn't. The viewership dropped. But how badly did it drop? Let's find out. These numbers come courtesy of Showbuzz Daily. So the official number was apparently an average total viewership of 1.643 million, which is the second lowest in history, the lowest being 1.622 million on July 27th of this year. Raw is also down from last week's average viewership of 1.722 million viewers. A little bit of a drop there, but I think generally it's a bad sign when your go-home show is down from the previous week. And we've talked already, and everyone's talking online, about various different reasons why WWE's viewership might be so bad recently. A lot of it might have to do with the pandemic. I don't know, it's a really strange one, isn't it? But it doesn't look like it's being totally reversed at all in the meantime. And also, WWE have been using kind of increasingly desperate measures to try and boost these ratings. Everything from last-minute title changes that were decided on the day of the show, such as Sasha Banks taking the belt from Asuka, also double champions, that whole thing with Sasha and Bayley, and more prominently, the use of legends as well, such as Ric Flair, who it was reported by several news sources was brought back simply to boost ratings with his name value, and I'm assuming that's why HBK was also involved on this week's show. I wonder if they're going to do something at SummerSlam or several different things to try and really catch people's attention, potentially lapsed fans, and then hopefully boost their TV ratings in the weeks following SummerSlam. You know, we might see a few shocking title changes. Could Randy Orton be the favourite to win that match against Drew McIntyre simply because he's been around for longer, he is a bigger name, older fans will remember him more than Drew, and maybe he'll bring some fans back if he wins big. I'm also thinking, could they perhaps bring in a surprise appearance or two? I don't know how easy that would be in the current lockdown era, but maybe they would, to try and, you know, shock everybody and then promise an appearance on the following night's Raw. All of these different things are things that we have to, you know, keep in mind, take into account as we approach SummerSlam. It should be a very interesting show, not just for the card, which does seem to be a fairly unpredictable card, to be fair, but also because of the background stuff, the stuff between the lines, the things that WWE may do in order to garner attention. Next up, some pretty dark news as more details have emerged regarding the whole Sonya Deville attempted kidnapping/stalking incident. So we're just going to read what Sonya Deville herself has said about the incident, and the details are pretty shocking. So Deville filed and was granted a petition for a temporary injunction against stalking violence on Tuesday, further detailing her incident with Philip Arnold Thomas II, who is the guy who was found in her house. In the petition, Sonya said that she was awoken after she'd gone to bed. She was awoken by a security alarm and was alerted that a sliding door was open. So she then woke up her house guest, which was Mandy Rose. Deville was then, and this is where it gets really quite startling, she was approached by Thomas, who was armed with a knife. So the two wrestlers fled the home, and rightly so, because you don't want to mess with a dude with a knife, do you? The sheriff's deputies then gave Thomas's name to Sonya Deville, who then searched her social media accounts for any messages from him that she might not have seen, and apparently she found hundreds. She also said that he appeared to have sent his last message to her whilst situated in her garden, which is again very, very scary indeed. He remains in jail right now as he has been charged with 3 felonies, including armed kidnapping, and PW Insider have reported that a public defender has been assigned to Thomas and that he has invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege to remain silent. So very startling stuff there. Thankfully, both Sonya and Mandy are totally fine and unharmed from the incident physically, but I imagine it's placed them under quite a considerable amount of stress, as it would any of us. So hopefully they recover from this very soon and can get back to doing what they do best. And of course, they do have a match at SummerSlam. And finally, a WWE show may be set to make a return, and it's none other than Daniel Bryan's favourite and Renee Young's favourite as well. Met all of our favourites Talking Smack. Obviously, Raw talk has been going on after Raw, and now, according to PW Insider, WWE may be relaunching Talking Smack. It's kind of if you've never seen it, it's kind of a SmackDown post show where the wrestlers come on and basically talk in character, in kayfabe, about the goings on of the episode, but also it's kind of got a looser feel. They're clearly improvising a little bit more. They're less tied down by scripts, and generally it makes for a lot more of a fun and captivating set of promos than in the actual show, which is odd to say, but it's just true. Now, PW insiders say that apparently WWE have been considering bringing the show back since January, but now may revive it by the end of the month on the WWE Network. Obviously, Raw Talk started this summer, a post show that debuted in tandem with the launch of the network's free tier. Talking Smack was originally cancelled in July 2017. Was it really that long ago? Because reportedly, Vince McMahon did not see it as acting in the company's best interests. I guess people were going a little bit off topic here and there and maybe shooting from the hip a little bit, but it was very entertaining, and I think it was very popular online as well. A lot of people did enjoy it. It gave us some incredible moments, most notably, of course, the Miz's impassioned promo on Daniel Bryan before Bryan had even returned from injury, which obviously kept their feud going until Bryan came back. And it was a great promo from the Miz as well, an excellent one about how his style is supposedly soft, but look who's still wrestling day in and day out, and you can't Daniel Bryan. And the energy in that segment was so real and so intense. And hopefully, if Talking Smack does indeed return, as this PW Insider report suggests, we get more of the same. So thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your thoughts and opinions on any of these news stories in the comments section down below. Thank you very much again for watching, of course, and stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.